Hey everybody, it's Jeff, and welcome back to the YouTube/podcast. Honestly, I don't really know what this is at this point. There will be video up on YouTube and maybe Spotify too, if I can figure out how to get that working. But yeah, if you're on YouTube, I am going to be starting uploading these onto Spotify and Apple Music as well too. So be sure to subscribe and follow me on those platforms if you'd rather just listen than have your YouTube playing open, of course. But yeah, today, as you can tell by the title, we are going to be ranking my top 10 NBA players in the league right now. And look, 10 names is kind of a arbitrary cutoff, right? Because at least in my opinion, I have on my list roughly 14 players, maybe 15 that I'm kind of considering for this. And sorry, it's actually 13. 13, maybe 14. With the 14th being Devin Booker, but honestly, he's not really going to be in this conversation that much. But yeah, I have 13 names who I think are, worthy of talking about in this discussion at least. And I didn't want to just limit it to 10 because I kind of feel like at least names 8 through 13 are kind of roughly in the same tier or category for me. But yeah, I'm not going to be one of those guys that would kind of just like puts names in tiers and says, oh, you can order these however you want. And I won't argue with it because we're gonna take a stand on things here. Even if I don't actually feel that strongly about, let's say, Jokic over Shai or Shai over Jokic, I'm still gonna, just put a number ranking to it for the sake of it. Because yeah, no one likes it when you kind of just sit on the fence here. But of course, if I am putting guys in the same tier, it means that I'm at least viewing them in the same category, at least, right? So yeah, I feel like it's pretty simple. And by the way, this is kind of just going to be me talking and yapping about this. It's going to be like a little 1 hour long-ish, roughly, I think, monologue about all these players and names I want to talk about. So hopefully you guys enjoy. But starting off, though, I think the two guys who, for a long time, honestly, have kind of struggled to really rank them appropriately. And those two guys are Kevin Durant and LeBron James. Because if you compare these guys to, let's say, the versions of themselves from like 5 years ago, the players they were 5 years ago, right, would easily be in my like top 5 list here. Like, for example, Kevin Durant in 2021, he's like in contention for number 1 spot here. Or LeBron James in 2021, 2022 even, and especially 2020, right, still had a very strong argument for best player in the entire world. And the guys who they are right now, like, statistically, they're not that much further away from who they were before. But I think it's very obvious when you actually watch them play that they have taken a step back, right? And obviously, Bron this year has started off a little bit slow, but his last few games, he's back to scoring like 30 points. He had 36 versus the Clippers again, right? Like, he's clearly returning to who he was in 2025 last season when he was a top 6 MVP candidate and All-NBA team member. But those players who, before, previously in their past, were like arguably the best player in the world and have now kind of, I'd still say they're playing at a top 10 level, but here's kind of my thing, especially with LeBron, right? I definitely do value the amount of games and availability of players available for. And the way I kind of think about it when I talk about, guys in my top 10 list, right, is which would I rather have? Would I rather have, for example, 82 games of Mikal Bridges or 60 games of LeBron? I'd probably still go with LeBron, of course, but I think factoring in, hey, I can have 20 more games of this other guy absolutely matters. You can't just like think about these players at their absolute best because you're not getting these guys at their absolute best and healthiest all the time, right? You have to absolutely factor in just how available they are, just how much they're playing. And yeah, because that matters when it comes to playoff positioning, standings, how much wear and tear you're placing on other members of your team, how important depth is. Like, it all goes into a complete basketball season, right? And that might sound obvious or intuitive to you, but it feels like a lot of people honestly don't really understand that. So yeah, when it comes to LeBron, clearly he missed the first like quarter of the season, a bit under it at least, right? But he's ramping back up to shape now. But it does seem like with the issues he's managing, like the sciatica and ankle stuff, you can't depend on Bron to play the entire like 82 game season, which again is fine because as long as he's available in the playoffs and is moving still well enough, you're still very happy with him. But to me, that absolutely matters when I'm comparing LeBron to someone like Jalen Brunson or like Cade Cunningham or Jalen Brown, for example, who I do have above him on this list right now, even if I think like peak for peak. Like, let's say it's a 7-game playoff series and it's you can guarantee I have LeBron James for that entire series. Yeah, he's probably on the same level and arguably even better than those guys, even at right now where he's like 41 years old. But again, I think when I factor in the fact that, okay, can I depend on this guy to really put my team on his back for an entire regular season? I don't quite think that LeBron, especially now, is quite as dependable as those other guys. And again, to be fair, he did play 70 games last season, and he played 71 games the season before, right? So if we're ranking like 2025 LeBron, easily in my top 10 still, of course, right? He's probably like seventh or something. At the age of, what is he now? 142. I think it's very fair to kind of think about, okay, just how much. Sorry, it's not even 41 yet. This is going to be his age 41 season. But yeah, like I think it's very fair to think about how this actually impacts his reliability over the course of his season. So all in all, just explaining myself, I do have LeBron at 13 as of right now. It's kind of a weird thing because if he plays the rest of the season, then yeah, he's gonna just like move up and up, right? But just because it feels like I can rely on having Donovan Mitchell or like Jalen Brunson over the course of an entire season more, I'm going to have to roll with those guys ahead for now. Moving on, though, we have KD. And kind of like I said before, I do have a little bit of a tough time ranking him because the KD from 5 years ago is arguably the best player in the entire world right now, and like easily in contention for number one, right? And statistically, he's not that far away from who he was before. I mean, this season, he's still averaging 25. He's still shooting, obviously extremely efficiently from the field. Let me just dig those stats up real quick. Yeah, he's shooting 50.9% from the field, 43.5% for three, 89% from the line, right? And he's pretty much on Houston's roster. He's one of only two shooters besides him and like Reed Shepherd. But the problem is, I think that when you kind of think about, okay, over the last 5 years, which I would say is probably the most relevant time span, right? Like from 22 on to now, I don't think Kevin Durant has looked better or outperformed guys like Donovan Mitchell or Jalen Brunson. And I think it's absolutely relevant, right? Because yeah, I would have a guy from 2021 over all of those guys, but he also hasn't looked like that dude for the last 5 years. I mean, while he is still very good, the fact that he kind of struggled a little bit. Sorry, I need some water real quick. But whew, yeah, but again, that stretch in Phoenix where he was scoring points, and I'm not gonna be one of those fools who calls it like empty calories, but it does feels like, when he's not really contributing much on the defensive end anymore, and there's clearly kind of like a lack of, again, I'm not calling him a bad leader, but I wouldn't necessarily say he's a great one either, considering how bad the vibes are getting in the locker room in Phoenix, right? I don't think Kevin Durant has really done anything in the last 4 or 5 years for me to put him over a guy like Jalen Brunson or Donovan Mitchell, who have been doing much more impressive things while averaging better numbers or equivalent numbers, right? And I don't think it's a stretch to say, hey, the guy who he is right now at age 37 is not the same player he was at age 32. Even though I understand longevity has increased exponentially in the league since then. But even so, like, come on, we're talking about a guy who's 37 years old. I think that even if we haven't really had a chance to see him in a high stakes playoff environment like we did with the Nets, right? I don't think it's unfair for me to question if he's still at that level, even if he hasn't necessarily had a chance to really prove it yet, because that was a really long time ago at this point. 4 or 5 years in NBA is an eternity. I still do have KD at, number 12 on this list. And if you want to put him in your top 10, I would disagree with you. But again, it's just like not a hill I'm going to die on, really. But yeah, moving on, though, we have Jaylen Brown. And I really wanted to kind of like horseshoe him into my top 10 list here. I really thought hard about it, but I couldn't quite keep him above Cade, who I feel like we have to evaluate this entire season. And while Jaylen Brown recently has been playing absolutely nuts, and here, let's pull some stats. Like, yeah, his last 7 games, 31 points, 30 points, 34 points, 30 points, 30 points, 30 points, 42 points. He's been playing like an MVP candidate. He's been playing like an All-NBA first-team member over the last like month or so. But of course, the season has been more than just the last month. And while I do think that recency bias like matters, because who you're playing like right now obviously is going to be very relevant to how I'm going to be ranking you right now. But again, Cade Cunningham has been doing, which I'll talk about him later, has been playing at an insane level too for like just a little bit longer. So I am going to put Brown at 11 for now and just outside this top 10 list. But again, it's such an arbitrary cutoff for like 10 guys. He's on the same level, at least to me right now, as Mitchell and Brunson and Cade, who spoiler alert, sorry, are coming up ahead. But I think that if I am going to place like a numerical ranking on them, I'm going to put him slightly below. By the way, his passing this season has been really impressive. He's kind of always been more of like a Jason Tatum has been more of like the playmaking forward. But also obviously scores a lot of points, but Brown's really more so focused on just getting buckets and taking advantage of good matchups. And when Tatum is being double teamed, being the guy who's going to like attack off those advantages, right? He's always been excellent at that, and that's why you've kind of seen him as like I would say more of a second option over his career than a first option. But yeah, absolutely, this season he's proving, hey, I have the passing chops to also be a legitimate first option on a close to 50-win team, which is what Boston's on pace for. He's averaging 4.9 assists this season. He is averaging over 3.5 turnovers a night, but it feels like with JB, his turnovers aren't necessarily from, oh, I'm trying to make a pass here and it's not going. He's kind of always had a bit of a, I don't want to say sloppy handle because it is very tight sometimes, but Jalen Brown is going to dribble the ball off his foot sometimes or just make a really unforced error. Like it's not even like someone is pressuring up against him and he can't handle the ball pressure. It's less of a playmaking issue to me and more of a, I don't really know what's going on, honestly, with his handle. But I do. The point is, though, I am very impressed by his passing because teams are keying in on him right now as a primary option. And I did kind of doubt his ability to really handle that. And when the season first started, I was like kind of thinking, well, he's not really proving me wrong, but he's not dispelling my doubts about him as a lead option who has to handle double teams and the entire team's defensive game plan against them the whole night. But yeah, again, over the last month, and the Celtics have been playing through a gauntlet, right? They've played Detroit, they've played Toronto, Miami, Milwaukee, Toronto twice, actually, the Lakers, Knicks, Cleveland, even Minnesota. He scored 41 against Minnesota. I mean, he's been playing out of his mind. Yeah, he had 35 against Orlando, too, just going down his game log. The point is, though, this is a pretty tough schedule for the Celtics, and it's going to get easier from them moving forward. And he's handled it magnificently, and he's led Boston to a really strong record. I think they're now 10-2 in their last 11-2 or something like that in the last 13. Yeah, so shout out Jalen Brown. Had that crazy like corner three against the Pacers a couple days ago, which I am recording this on Tuesday. You'll probably see this on Wednesday by the time I have it uploaded. But yeah, he is outside my top 11 right now. Sorry, at my 11th place. If he keeps on averaging 30 points a night like he has been, I mean, his season numbers have been pretty good already. He's averaging 29, 6 and 5. Like, yeah, he's going to be in the MVP race. Yeah, really impressive stuff. Shout out Jalen Brown. I'm very tempted to put him higher, but I'm going to be fair and say because we haven't seen him actually handle the pressure as a number one option in the playoffs, in which we have seen guys like Cade, Brunson, and Mitchell do it and like do pretty well. I'm still going to put him like below those guys, but in the same tier. But yeah, moving on there, we have Cade Cunningham, and wow, I should probably start getting a rush on with this recording because I don't want to go too long. But yeah, Cade, he's been a bona fide top 10 player this season, legitimate MVP candidate. He's kind of slowed down a little bit recently shooting wise. Sorry, not slowed down. It's more so over the entire season. His three ball has really kind of been really weird. I saw a few weeks ago that he's shooting 18% on wide open threes this season, which is, I'm pretty sure was like the worst in the league. It was either him or Amen Thompson. I forgot. But yeah, it was just a crazy stat where like both Devin Booker and Cade and, Amen Thompson, we know he's not a shooter. It's not about Amen right now. But yeah, Cade's three ball this season has been pretty down compared to where it has been in the past, which, honestly, I think it's more so to do with like a stamina thing. Like we know he can shoot, right? Like he's shot around like 36% the previous two seasons, but it feels like he's really kind of absorbing more and more usage on offense, right? And you guys all know what it's like to play tired. Your legs give out a little bit more. You start missing short, and it's not like Cade is getting a lot of wide open threes either. So they're not coming like in rhythm off like wide open catch and shoots as often as they are for someone like, I don't know, Malik Beasley, his former teammate, for example. It's a weird thing, but I expect that it is going to kind of bounce back. We kind of see this honestly with a lot of guys. Like Jason Tatum also had a weird dip in his three ball over the last few years, although that could have been attributed to his wrist injury he suffered in 2022. But yeah, I mean, Cade this season, he's averaging 27, 6 and 9, 1.4 steals, 0.8 blocks, still shooting 45.7% from the field. And I'm actually curious to see how this is affecting his advanced efficiency metrics. Yeah, I mean, he's still at like 56.2% true shooting, which has been kind of bolstered by his free throw rate because he does get to the line a lot, 7 times a night, and he shoots over 82% from there. But yeah, he's a real three-level scorer. Even though he's not shooting that well from three this season, you still can't exactly go under screens and just let him take that shot every single time. Although I think moving forward, teams are probably going to have to dare him to do that a little bit more often because it's hard to stop a guy who's like, I mean, he's listed at 6'6", but he feels like more like a 6'7", 6'8", 220 pounds. When he's getting downhill and he has skill to score from the post, score inside, stop and pop from the mid range, and get to the line like that, like, yeah, you kind of have to force him to start doing things. Okay, the stats say he's not shooting that well this season. Maybe we do have to start giving up this shot as like a last resort. But yeah, Cade though, number 10. I mean, I say he's having a real MVP season because the Pistons are 23-6. Obviously, I don't think he's going to necessarily win the award. But again, he should be on that ballot, right? Last year was kind of Detroit's first rodeo in the postseason. And now is his first chance. Okay, this team has expectations out. When you're 23-6 and you're a number 1 seed in the NBA, sorry, in the East at least, not in the NBA, that's Oklahoma City. Your expectations now are conference finals appearance, right? As compared to last season when they were like the 5th seed and they were just fighting to make a strong playoff exit. I think you should be happy with how their season ended last year. Like, yeah, they lost to the Knicks, but it was a pretty hard fought battle. And you're proud of the way Cade showed off. I think he proved that, despite some like rough shooting nights in a few of those games, he can handle that pressure, and he has potential to be the number 1 guy on a championship team in the future. And this season is kind of going to be his first chance to really further prove that. I'm not expecting Detroit to make the finals, of course, because it's kind of like OKC in 2024, where yeah, they were the number 1 seed, but it was their first time really in that environment. And it's just not really fair to expect that and blow the whole team up if they don't, because you saw with OKC the next season, yeah, once they had some experience and figured it out, they're champions. Obviously not sure if Detroit is going to follow that same path, but the point being, though, I think that this playoffs run is going to be a really good chance for Cade to, hey, kind of cement himself even in the top 5 convo, right? And put some separation between himself and the guys I have above him, which, moving on, at number 9, Cade is number 10, by the way. Number 9, we have Jalen Brunson. And, with JB, there's that, Becky Hammond, like, quote about, oh, he's just too small to win a championship with. And it's been making its rounds around Twitter again. And look, I don't disagree with that because I do think there is something to be said about small guards and it being difficult to win championships with them, especially when their play style is so centered around attacking the basket and being inside the line. There's a reason why we haven't really seen a player be able to do that in the last like 30 years, right? I don't really count Steph in that because the way Steph plays is so different. And again, there's truth to what she's saying, but that doesn't take away from the fact that, okay, if you want to think about it from a macro of like championship or bust perspective, sure, but he's still averaging 29.1 points per game this season, 6.5 assists, 3.5 rebounds. He's shooting 48% from the field, 37% from the line, 85% from the free throw line. 37% from behind the line, and 85% from the free throw line. Like, these are MVP numbers. And again, I keep using that word MVP because, yeah, my top like 10 players or so are going to be guys who I think have, legitimate MVP caliber seasons, right? Like, they're capable of having those years. And Jalen Brunson this season, especially recently, I mean, he's been on an absolute tear. I think he's been averaging like 30 this month. He's won the last 2. Well, he's won 2 out of the last 3 Eastern Conference Players of the Week. The Knicks are on an absolute like hot streak right now. They've really reeled off a really nice series of wins so far. Yeah, they're 20-8. They're second in the East. They're pretty hot in Detroit's tail. And, we can have some like macro conversations about if this like Knicks makeup, this core of like him, Karl Anthony Towns, OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart is good slash talented enough to win a championship. And if like Mike Brown is a good enough coach for that to happen. But I think that's a convo for the offseason. It's not one that I want to focus on right now. When I just want to talk about how good Brunson has been over the season. And again, the way he's able to put a team on his back, we saw it against the Pistons last year in the playoffs, right? Like we've been seeing him do it the last 3-4 regular seasons now for the Knicks as well. I want 70-ish games of that versus a guy like, let's say, Anthony Davis, who is just not as like reliable from like can he put my team on the back over the course of an entire season perspective, right? So shout out JB. It's really hard to do what he's doing at his size right now. Of course, the physicality and like the defensive attention he gets is really crazy. It's a little bit similar to Allen Iverson again, when I'm talking about just these undersized guards who play super aggressive and physical. Like it's very taxing on their body. And he's been able to, obviously handle that magnificently for the Knicks. So yeah, I am going to have him firmly in my top 9, even though, again, I think it's fair to have these conversations about him as a real number 1 option on the championship team. But I don't want to talk about that right now. Like this is just like a quarter season top 10 player list. But yeah, another quick water break here. Okay, so that was number 9, Jalen Brunson. Number 8, I have Donovan Mitchell. I do have Mitchell above Brunson, and obviously I have him above Jalen Brown because I feel like Mitchell has proven himself to be a very good first option in the playoffs, even if it hasn't led to like an actual championship. But like his teams have never been actual like championship caliber like teams, guys. I'm not saying he can take a team to like a ring the same way like SGA can, but I'm also not saying he can't when he hasn't been given like a supporting cast in that way yet. Above Jalen Brunson because I do feel like we have a little bit more of a body of work from him, and it's very close, right? And like JB this season gets like the record bump, but I mean, come on, we're not dumb enough to just look at team records without context. Like, yeah, Cleveland has been disappointing this season from like a wins perspective, but that is not on Donovan Mitchell by any stretch, and anyone who's paying attention should know that. I mean, they've been missing Jared Allen for a few weeks. Darius Garland is still playing through a toe injury, and apparently there's some like chemistry issues with him, not liking his role in the team. Max Strus is still hurt. I mean, Cleveland has just had some really bad luck this season with injuries, right? And the fact that they are, I mean, what are they? They are they're 16-14. Okay, wow, they've been kind of on a bit of a rough stretch recently, actually. They were of like 5 games over 500 last time I checked. But the fact that they are above 500 is pretty much all on Donovan Mitchell's shoulders, really. He's been playing, I don't know if he's missed a game this season, actually. He's played 27 games. And he's averaging 30.7 points per game, career high, by the way. 4.5 rebounds, 5.5 assists. And I mean, he's always been an absolute just like flamethrower, shooting wise. But this season, he's shooting 10.5 threes a night, and he's shooting 38.9%. If I'm not mistaken, yeah, that is a career high in both attempts and percentage. And he's shooting 49.5% from the field, which is, again, by far a career high. This is someone who used to shoot like 44% from the field, and now he's shooting 49.5%. He's getting to the line more than ever, a career high, 6.2 attempts a night. God, his true shooting must be like off the charts right now. I want to take a quick look at this. Yeah, he's at 63.2%. I mean, he's been playing absolutely phenomenal this season. I know he doesn't have an actual chance at the MVP, and he probably won't even finish top 5 in the MVP voting because his team's record won't be good enough. But if I'm thinking about like, okay, the guys who have just the academic definition of like valuable or whatever, he's definitely top 5 in that category, to me at least. I mean, without him, Cleveland would be in such a dark place offensively. And yeah, I mean, I can't sing enough praises about Donovan Mitchell. And again, in the playoffs, like people really, really sleep on how good he's been. I mean, last year, yeah, I know they lost to the Pacers in the second round, but nobody in their right minds who watched that series can blame Donovan Mitchell for that loss when, again, half the starting lineup was hurt. DeAndre Hunter was hurt. Evan Mobley was hurt. Jared Allen was hurt. Darius Garland was injured. Like, they were missing games. They were hurt seriously enough to miss games. And I do think it was still like a quote-unquote winnable series at least. But Mitchell was going crazy that series. Like, he was the only reason why that was even a, what was it? Was it a 7-game series or was it a, okay, sorry, it was a 5-game series. I don't know why I said 7. But he was the only reason why they were competitive in a lot of those games. I mean, Indiana had to make multiple fourth quarter comebacks to win that series. And yeah, I mean, Mitchell averaged 34 points a night in that series. If there's any doubt on how good he actually is in the playoffs and if he's able to deliver, there really shouldn't be. I mean, if you want to talk about him as like, okay, can he be like Kobe and Dwayne Wade and power a team to like a finals as the clear-cut number one option? Yeah, he hasn't proven that. And honestly, I don't think he ever will necessarily. And he is, at least in my opinion, which one of my friends always says, Yao Bonsu, actually the guy who I do my podcast with, has been saying that he is the best player in the world who is not actually being considered for like best player in the world. Him and like Brunson, which I think that's very fair. There's definitely a clear cut, a separation between him and the guys above him. But I mean, I can't sing enough praises about Donovan Mitchell. I feel like his game is just super underappreciated. And yeah, I have him at number 8 at the top of this kind of like 8 through 13 category. But moving on, though, we're going to have one more guy who you guys, I think he's been rated in a lot of different places for a lot of people. Some guys have really kind of, I would say, overreacted with Victor Wembanyama based off like 2 or 3 games and have like put him like in the top 3 already. And again, quick water break. Wow. Okay. I don't give enough credit to like actual podcasters who just talk for like an hour straight because this is pretty rough on my voice. But yeah, let's talk about Wemby, who I do have at number 7. This year is averaging 24.5 points a night, 12 rebounds, basically 4 assists, 3.3 blocks, which hilariously is a career low, actually. Obviously, defensively, Wemby is, in my opinion, and it should be your opinion, he's by far the best defensive player in the NBA. You can't get a shot up around him in the paint. He's obviously very good on the perimeter as well, too, because he can move his feet well and has the length and athleticism to recover. He's pretty much number 7 on this list, almost purely because of his defense. And while he is very good on offense, too, I would not consider Wemby a top 10 offensive player at this stage right now, especially recently. And I think he can change that as the season progresses. We're just like talking about how he's looked so far, right? And he did just come back with like a calf injury. I do want to look at the stats again real quick before he went out. I mean, he scored 40 in his first game. But in his first 12 games before his like calf injury, he was averaging 26 points per game, 4 assists. He was shooting 50% from the field, 34% from 3. I mean, of course, these are excellent numbers, but I don't think it's fair to put him any higher when I haven't seen him against like a playoff defense in a 7-game series yet. And it's a similar thing with Jalen Brown, right? Where it's very different putting up these numbers in the regular season versus averaging them in the playoffs on like similar efficiency, right? Because now you have a good defense, a defense that, a playoff defense is going to be better than your average regular season team's defense, right? Who has an entire game plan for you because they've been plotting for a 7-game series against you. Obviously, the physicality escalates. It's probably going to be able to handle that like attention because, let's face it, he's possibly the best prospect of all time. And I think we all know by now he's going to have a legit shot at the GOAT case if he actually stays healthy, which is a whole nother conversation in of itself, of course. But yeah, I just can't put him any higher for now, just because like I haven't seen him actually in that environment. And I think about players in the past, kind of like Julius Randle or like Pascal Siakam, who led teams to 50+ seasons and were all NBA guys as a number 1 option, right? But once they got to the playoffs, it was just a whole different game, and they couldn't really handle that pressure as the guy. And I'm not saying that's going to happen to Wemby, right? I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'd probably actually bet against the other way. I would say, yeah, Wemby's going to be able to do this. But can he do that this season? I don't know. It's going to be his first playoff run. sometimes like guys are able to really do it. I'm kind of blanking for a reminder off the top of my head right now, but like Anthony Edwards even was not like that amazing his first playoff run. He was really good a second time, of course, but the point is just that I'm not comfortable putting him above someone like Steph when, even though defensively, I mean, his impact is like ginormous, right? And we saw the way like the Knicks kind of limited him a little bit in NBA Cup game where, yeah, if you like really keep him away from the paint by forcing him to shoot jumpers and just kind of like really doing your best to get underneath them so you can't like gain the leverage to step around you, he can struggle a little bit. I'm not saying that game plan is going to work for a full 7-game series because let's be honest, like, yeah, the offense is allowed to adjust to defense as well too. My point is just he hasn't looked infallible, of course, on offense, and I just have to see him in a postseason run first before I actually put him any higher. But obviously, Wemby is a clear contender to rise into the top 5 and top 3 even based on how strong he is this playoffs. Okay, so that was number 7 for me. At number 6, we have Steph Curry, who, I'll put my hand up. I'm ashamed to say this, but there was a time last season to start before they had Jimmy Butler where I thought Steph might be kind of washed. Obviously, that's not true. This season is averaging 28.7 points a night. He looks incredible. I mean, he's shooting 47% from the field again. Wow. Yeah, I mean, Steph is Steph. He's, I think, clearly not moving the same way he was moving even like 4 years ago in like 2022 at this point. But like, he's still able to do all this off just like he's incredibly conditioned. He's playing more off ball than ever now. They're putting the ball in like JB's and like Draymond's hands more because they're saying, okay, let's maybe not make our 37-year-old 6'2" point guard like handle an entire defense like physicality for an entire possession. And he's playing a little bit more off ball, a little bit more like a shooting guard versus before in his career. Well, before the Steve Kerr days, at least. What am I talking about? Sorry, you actually played more like a point guard before Steve Kerr. He's playing more as an off-ball guard now, that's what I'm trying to say, which is good because this is how you extend his career, right? You can't have him just getting beat up inside like the way he used to as like the guy who's always initiating the offense. Yeah, even though they had Iggy and Dre back then too, but it's a little bit different now compared to the last few years, which is good. Again, he's still number 6 for me because I think he's proving that even though, I mean, the team is kind of just like falling apart a little bit around him, and they're 15-15 now. I don't know what they are in their last 7, but it can't be great. I mean, they kind of just like old. They have no other guards who can really handle the ball and attack. Like, obviously Jimmy Butler is good at that, but he's more like he's a wing, right? He's a 6'8" forward. They need more of an actual like real, true like speedy, shifty point guard who gets like paint touches and really initiates the offense and gets guys involved. They don't really have that at all right now, besides like maybe Pat Spencer, but you shouldn't be relying on Pat Spencer to provide this for you. This team's like roster construction is just kind of a mess in general. It's really being like propped up by Steph right now, which is sad because at age 37, I mean, again, to be fair, for a lot of other franchise legends at age 37, this is like what they were doing too. This is what like Kobe was doing, so it's not like it's what LeBron's been doing. It's not like super unfair, I guess. But a shout out to Steph, guys. He's still my top 6. I am putting him. Okay, so I had like 8 through 13 in their own tier, right? Number 7, Wemby was in his own little group. I am going to put Steph firmly above Wemby for now, just because like offensively, I'm very confident that if you throw Steph into the playoffs, like he's going to be able to handle it still, the way he's looked so far, right? Obviously, last season he was incredible against the Rockets. So I'm going to put Steph above like him with a clear gap for now. And on the same tier and one spot ahead, I do have Anthony Edwards, who, I mean, the way Ant has really been just progressively getting better every single season. He's been putting up career highs, like points per game wise. It's his 6th season in a row at age 24. This year he's averaging 28 points a night, 4 assists, 5 rebounds. And, like there was that huge game against OKC a few nights ago in which they won where you really kind of saw all of his like traits on display. And he gets this like MJ and Kobe comp for a reason. And you can't help but go like, yeah, I see it. Because when you watch a guy like dog the other opposing team's best guard on defense on a possession like that, and he strips Shea, and then he comes down and hits that like dagger, was it a three or a two? I forgot. But he hits that game winning shot. Like that's a play which Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant do, right? Obviously he has a long way to go to actually be in those like conversations, but he is one of my favorite players to watch in the league right now. He doesn't get to the free throw line, honestly, as often as he probably could. He, if we're going to be honest, like he probably should flop more for just the sake of like scoring more points. But yeah, quote unquote, playing more ethical basketball, however you want to call it, he's still averaging 28 points a night. But yeah, he easily breaks 30, I think, if he starts to really kind of exploit some of those rules a bit more, like the way Shea does, or like Denny Avdija or Austin Reeves does. He could easily break 30. And by the way, that goes for Steph too. Like Steph has always been someone who doesn't really flop and like initiate contact that same way. If he started doing that, he probably would have been averaging 30 the last like 6, 7 years. Yeah. And in the playoffs though, last 2 seasons as the number one option. I mean, Minnesota has really kind of lacked, especially with the decline of Mike Conley. They've really lacked another ball handler who can really handle those like initiation duties. And they do have Julius Randle and Dante now at this point. But again, it's just different when you have like a quick, speedy guard who can just get paint touches and get those kickouts, right? And make life a little bit easier for Ant, who has to bring the ball up a lot and really play this dual point guard, shooting guard role really often. It's tough, but I think he's grown remarkably as a player so far, and I think he's proved himself as a playoff performer, of course, right? As both a passer and primary scorer. It's just a question of, okay, can Minnesota put together like a real contending roster next to him to win a championship? Which again, this season I don't think they have that. I do think they have a very good team, of course. Like all the pieces do fit, but I'm not quite sure if you're going to rely on like Julius Randle as a number two scoring option. I think you just need a little bit more depth around him, the same way like the Pacers and Thunder kind of built that team, where they have like 10 guys who can all come out and play big minutes for you. I don't think Minnesota has that in terms of like that roster construction. I think that's what they should go for, because it's really hard to put another like top 15 player on his team, which is what traditionally the formula has been, right? But the last 2 years, it's kind of been more like one really good player like Jokic or Shea, or like Luka. I guess, okay, the Luka and Kyrie thing was more like the top 15 player formula, but you have like one really good player, and then you have like 8 or 9 guys around him who are all just really good. I think Minnesota has more like, honestly, 7 guys. I'm not even sure if Mike Conley qualifies for this. I'm going to put Jalen Clark here, and I'm going to say like that like Terrence Shannon Jr. has that also potential, but I mean beyond that, it looks a little bit rougher and more shallow, of course. But yeah, Ant is at my number 5. He's knocking on the door of a top 4, but I'm not going to put him there yet. Number 4, though, we have Luka Dončić. And if you had asked me to make this list like earlier on in the season, I might have had Luka like, no, I would not have had a number 1, but I would have like said he had an argument for it. I think at this point, like, especially the way he's been playing recently, it's not that he's been playing bad. He's still playing up putting up great numbers, of course, too. But his shooting has been a little bit rough, and you've kind of been getting like the I would say uglier side of like Luka ball, where I mean his shot selection, where it's a miracle he's able to be efficient at all, because he probably has like he takes some of the toughest shots like a player can take in the league. He might actually have the worst, not worst. He might actually have like the hardest shot selection out of like anybody in the league. It's like him and like Kawhi and Harden are in like the conversation. But he's had some like uglier shooting games recently, which has kind of made you like, ever since like, let's say, I think it was like mid-November, I want to say, you've been getting like a few more of those than you typically get, especially with a 3-ball. Like he came into the league obviously shooting really well, but his game has really kind of, I don't want to say devolved, but he's been relying more and more since like 2021 on just kind of like shooting those like deep step back threes and taking just a lot of really tough threes. And he still makes them at a decent clip, of course. But they're just very tough shots. And when he's like missing those shots, it just gets a little bit hard to watch. He's a little bit James Harden-y in that way. And sorry, I know I'm being very negative on him right now. And he did just score like 40, what was that? 45 points against Utah. So like, it's not like he's, again, bad. He's still my top four, of course. But I'm just saying, it feels like we've been getting a little bit more of those like uglier Luka games recently, which is like made me a little bit more sour. But I'm still very confident that, yeah, you throw this guy in the playoffs, he's going to be able to lead you to a championship with the right team around him. Like, that's not even a question in my mind. Offensively, he is quite possibly, I mean, Jokic is number one right now, at least in terms of like being guys who you'd want to just touch the ball the entire possession essentially. And number two is Luka. Like, there's a reason why these guys average like 30 points a night. Luka's averaging 34 points a night this season. Oh my god. And like 10 assists, right? Yeah, like his play style really demands him to have the ball a lot, and it's very justified. There's very few players in the league who can make this like style of play actually work. And Luka Dončić is without question one of them. Like there's Jokic and him now, and in the past you had like James Harden and LeBron. But it's a very, very short list of guys who you can justify just having the ball for like 80% of the possession and still getting a good shot out of it. And he is one of them. But he is number four for me, primarily because of, honestly, like, the reason why like Giannis, for example, is above him is because of the defense. And I'm also putting Shai above him because I do think Shai, number one, Shai is better on defense than Luka. That's not the primary reason. Because I do think offensively, like Shai has been putting like together a very good case for being, honestly, he's been putting together a good case for being better offensively than Luka is. And for me, it's mostly like an efficiency thing. And I understand OKC has an incredible system that facilitates getting good shots for him by having like five guys out there who can shoot and spread the floor. And they really they spread the floor out really well, where he gets a lot of room to work from his favorite spots, right? Like it's almost kind of triangle offensy in that situation. But even so, I'm not sure if there's any other player in the league right now who, if you put him in Shai's shoes, would be doing what he's doing right now from a scoring standpoint, where he's averaging 32.5 points a game, and he's shooting 55.4% in the field, 44% from three. I mean, the three ball was like kind of his quote unquote weakness. And his last two seasons, he's been shooting magnificently from there, especially this season. I mean, 44% is like as good as it gets on pretty good volume, 5 threes a game. He's been going to a little step back. It's not like he's taking just like wide open catch and shoot threes. No, he's taking some tough ones off the dribble in the clutch, right? Like these are big momentum swinging shots. And of course, OKC has, it's kind of foolish to say they've been on a down streak recently because, down streak for them is losing 2 games in a span of like 2 weeks or something, which almost every other team does regularly. But yeah, Shai is number 3 for me. He does have I would say, so again, I have another like tier of separation. I have like Ant and Steph in that tier. Luka is in one above because the way he's kind of, honestly, okay, sorry, no, scratch that. I'm not putting Luka in a different category from Ant and Steph because now that I kind of think about it, like the way like Anthony Edwards can really kind of lock in on a defensive possession, like even if he can't do that for an entire game, because frankly, it's exhausting to do that. No one can really do that in the modern NBA anymore. But the way he can do that when it matters most is something that Luka just can't. And yeah, that matters, right? So, okay, yeah, I'm gonna put Luka, Ant, and Steph in the same category here. And yeah, Shai is gonna be number 3 for me for all these reasons. I was a little bit tempted to put Shai number 1. Just because, like, I think he's the best scorer in the league right now by far. And I know Luka's averaging, like, more points per game and stuff. But like, just the efficiency in which Shai does it on. And, like, it's not like he's just getting... we talked about with, like, Luka how he's taking a lot of tough shots. The shots that Shai takes are very tough as well, too, where he's, like, pirouetting and spinning around and paint and elbows and all that. He's just doing them from like a little bit closer in, where he's been absolutely like a flamethrower inside. I talked about this on my Instagram, but I think he's like, yeah, if you look at his like advanced efficiency metrics, he's like on par with guys like DeAndre Jordan, Rudy Gobert, who in previous seasons where all they're doing is dunking, and he's doing it while averaging 32 plus points a night. So yeah, I was tempted to put him number one because of that. I think that like you can, and I wouldn't be mad, but I'm still gonna have to give that spot, those first two spots to Giannis and Jokic, who I have Giannis one, by the way. I think it's fair to think about like, okay, like if Giannis is gonna keep missing games because his health has been a real like question mark over the last few seasons. But yeah, like it's a fair question mark, but he's not like been missing a crazy amount of games. He's still playing like high 60s, low 70s. Defensively, even if Giannis has not been the depoy level player he was in the past, like 2020 and 2021, honestly, I think his best season might have been 2022. It's just, I mean, that team just like fell apart in second round once Chris Middleton got. Sorry, they didn't actually even fall apart. They took Boston to 7 games, but I think that like that was peak Giannis, honestly, in my opinion. I'm digressing though, but defensively, obviously, he was like the best defender in the world during that span, and he's not that quite that anymore. But he's still pretty good. And out of the guys in our top, like our list from six down, he's by far the best player on this, right? Like I would say the only guys. So Anthony Edwards, I would still consider like a positive on the defensive end, and a very good positive when he's actually like trying, right? Shai, I would lean more. I would still lean positive. Luka and Jokic are, they're going to be below average on that end. And I understand Jokic has like the hands and the positioning and whatnot, but you just can't deny the fact that when your center is not going to be like a real rim deterrent the same way someone like Giannis or Wemby can be, it's going to hurt your defense. And of course, it helps that they have Aaron Gordon there who alleviates that. And he's been hurt, but now they've been playing Spencer Jones and like Peyton Watson instead. But I don't think that takes away from the fact that like, yeah, you need a guy like that next to Jokic. And even if that like quote unquote weakness hasn't been exposed as much recently with those guys, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And sorry, I know that sounded kind of negative. I still do have Jokic number two. And I did really strongly, again, consider putting him number one. Because I do think that offensively, like, yeah, he is like he is better than Giannis, I think. But he is a better passer, of course. But I don't necessarily think he's better in a way that really actually kind of matters. I mean, he's averaging 29 this season, 12 rebounds, 11 assists. He's shooting 60.7% from the field and 42.5% from the three-point line. And I think that offensively, he is the best player in the world right now over Shai, when you just factor in like that passing aspect, of course, as well, too. But like if you just like replaced him with Giannis on the offensive end on any team, I'm not really losing sleep over that. I mean, Giannis can do things that Jokic can't do, of course, too. I think there's ways to like play around Giannis that makes him almost as effective with Jokic. And I don't think the personnel around Giannis is necessarily has to be that crazy either. I mean, we know he's had some struggles with like real more ball dominant guards like Lillard, because Giannis kind of plays like a guard himself a lot of the times. He's not a traditional just like pick and roll big, of course, right? Obviously, he's averaging 29 points a night, of course. But like he can still really power an offense to like a top 5 finish, I think, given his like strengths, his strides in passing and like mid-range shooting over the last few years. This is like, honestly, it's not a conversation that really interests me that much. If you want to have Jokic number one, that's fine. I'm still going to put Giannis above him because, yeah, like I think the defensive end does matter. It matters a lot less when a player is like absolutely clearing someone else offensively by leaps and bounds, right? Like if this was Jaden McDaniels versus who's better on defense, Anthony Edwards, but Anthony Edwards is so much better offensively. Like, yeah, I want Ant. But considering I do consider Giannis to be like on the elite of offensive ends as well too, the fact that he's also like a very good defender and I don't know if he might not be all defensive team caliber. No, I would say he is what he's at. When he's like full out, like giving us full energy, yeah, he without question is. Over the course of entire season, sorry, maybe not as much. And the playoffs, definitely. He is still a top 10 defender to me, of course. The point is just, I mean, he's really good on both offense and defense. And there's just very few players in my top 10 list who you can say that about. It's pretty much just Giannis, Wemby, of course. Maybe Jalen Brown. Obviously, Jalen Brown is a very good one-on-one defender. He's still been playing very well defensively this season, of course, too. But like, it's just, again, it's very hard for someone to be averaging 30 on offense while being an elite defender, especially like the smaller you get and more perimeter oriented you get. I think like Wembanyama can absolutely do that because he has more of like a presence as a just pure deterrent than like Brown, who's more like an on-ball defender. But yeah, I have Giannis one. Honestly, like once we get to top like three, like between Giannis, Jokic, and Shai, it doesn't really interest me that much because you're kind of just picking from, okay, do you want the guy who's elite on both ends, like best of the best on both ends? Do you want the guy who's just like clear cut the best like overall offensive player in the league when you factor in the scoring and the passing and the rebounding, of course, too? Or do you want the guy who's just like the best pure scorer in the entire league right now? Like those are all, I think, very three valid arguments to the best player in the world, the best player in the world. Sorry, and if you'd rather have Shai than Giannis, I think that's very fine. I would argue with you a lot more if you'd rather have like Edwards or Wemby over Shai, of course. But yeah, when it comes to these top three, I think that you can have a very like you can get a you would I would not lose sleep over having Shai over Jokic or Giannis for sure. But yeah, there's my list though. This is my first solo recording in a while where it's just me talking. I hope you guys liked it. Yeah, I'll probably try to do more of these in the future. It was fun for me, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. And yeah, happy holidays, everybody. I think I'll be putting this out on Wednesday, so yeah, enjoy your time with your family or with your well-deserved time off if you're working and stuff like that. And yeah, I'll see you for the next one, guys.